Hi, I'm Tamara. I'm a mum of 2 girls and a cat called Baby Jasper. And I am currently surviving triple negative breast cancer with the BRCA2 gene. I was diagnosed in August 2023. Prior to diagnosis, I went to the GP for a normal medical review because I was coming up to 40, 38 at the time. And the GP had said that this armpit, my right armpit, was more swollen than my left. They didn't query or suspect anything breast cancer related. I'd had a hysterectomy at 32 years old from having fibroids. So the point of the GP referring me to the breast clinic was because I was 38, and the fact that there'd been no more screening until the age of 50 because I didn't have smears anymore. And from being referred to the breast clinic, I was diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer. So I always say I didn't find TNBC, it found me. I did feel like at that time I was at the peak of my performance. I've always kept well with my weight, looked after myself. I eat well, I cook, I do, I was doing all of the right things that they'd say you are to be right. So to be diagnosed was a massive trauma. I found out about 3, 4 months after I was diagnosed. I think just before I started my first round of treatments, they asked if I wanted to do genetic blood testing. They asked that on the day that I'd got diagnosed, and I'd said yes because I am a mum of girls, and resulting from that, it did transpire that I had the BRCA2 gene. Um, I think what's really interesting is that I'm the first person in my maternal family to have had breast cancer, and then I'm the first person to have the gene identified, even though I have a family full of aunties and females, and my nan was nearly 100 when she died a few years ago. So it's been interesting but very strange to get my head around, and especially the impact on that potential impact it could have on my children and my grandchildren and the rest of it. Yeah. Initially, it was 8 rounds of chemotherapy, 4 rounds of one set of medication. The second round, we'd moved on to stronger medication. After I'd finished all my rounds, I then had a double mastectomy, which was direct to implant surgery. So I do think that I'm quite fortunate in the sense that I got to go to sleep and then wake up with new ones. It kind of minimized a lot of the trauma that I know other women may experience with having lumpectomies, mastectomies, and things like that. I had immunotherapy as well. That started around the same time as chemotherapy. But after I'd had my mastectomy, which was in April 2024, I'd finished chemotherapy because they deemed me as NED, no evidence of disease. But I'd still continued immunotherapy until the following December. When I initially got told I had breast cancer, I thought that I was well informed. So then being diagnosed myself and then to find out that breast cancer is in fact an umbrella term, you know, the way it's described and put out there for us, it seems quite general. Learning that men get breast cancer too was a big thing for me to learn too. Because I did do some reading on like TNBC and how they kind of structure dealing with it. I kind of had an inkling before it was even discussed that it would potentially happen, just for the fact of learning about triple negative and knowing that there's little other treatments, very fewer options compared to other breast cancer sufferers. I thought that I kind of realised that to minimise any future risk, the onus would be to take everything, anything that's worth taking, take it. I think just in general, there isn't enough support about kind of what to expect prior to the surgery, and no one doesn't really talk about the feelings that you'll get of losing everything. I think at the time for me, I think because I was so caught up in treatment and the focus was just making sure I've got no cancer in my body. So anything that everybody was offering to me to make sure that this would go away, I'm just saying yes to. And it's only, you know, the week before the surgery when you're kind of digesting everything and you're planning leading up to it, it's then really heavy and really traumatic. And then afterwards, there wasn't enough, you know, you only find support in support groups with other people that have had the same thing. And then, but even in those support groups, you find a lot of comparison because everybody's hurting and everybody's traumatized from what's happened to them. So then you'll be comparing your surgery to someone else or comparing something to someone else's. But I found that from the clinical perspective, I don't think that post surgery, I don't think there was enough. And then also because with TNBC, you know, there's a chance that they may have to have, you may have to have subsequent surgeries for other things, and I don't think that's really honed in on and explained to. With Black Women Rising, it was so interesting. So the hospital that I was that I'm registered to for oncology, you know, they give you the information pack. What was so sad is that they gave me the information pack, which had all the websites on there, Macmillan, Breast Cancer Now, and it had Black Women Rising on there. And I put the website in, and it was the wrong website, firstly. So then I typed them in on social media and found them. And then obviously I started following them and things like that. And while I was going through my treatment, my main goal was as soon as you get fit, you're going to get on the train and go to one of their under 40s support groups. I started attending a few of the groups online and I found them really beneficial. I think in the beginning I was kind of also a little bit traumatized by the group in the best way. I was more traumatized to know that there was so many women under 40 that had cancer. And obviously with Black Women's Rising, it is not just breast cancer, it's all cancers. So then learning more about rarer cancers, lymphomas and myelomas and all different things that, you know, you'd read about, you know, see in a documentary, and these are people's real life stories. And I think there's something about all being a part of the same club that nobody wants a membership to. But there's just something about being in that club that's just really, really warm and safe and wholesome. Just so much community, and obviously people like me, which I think when you're going through something really traumatic, you need to find someone like me, as well as allies that are going through same, you know, same symptoms or same journey, but you need to find someone like you for what you're going through. Another charity that I ambassador for, which is really, really close to my heart, is We Get Touchy. That's like with a good friend of mine, and she's created that charity, and she just highlights absolutely everything. She's out on the streets, she's out doing stuff, she's creating movies. It's just been amazing, and amazing to be a part of these things. Also with ambassadoring now for TNBC UK. It's just exciting because also I feel like I'm a part of a movement, even though it's always been there. I feel like I'm a part of a movement that's really just starting now in all charities, and I feel like we're just being heard now and voices are being amplified, and it makes me feel strong to be involved. And then I think that's how I measure my health at the moment. If I don't feel strong, whether it's mentally or physically, I won't be able to be involved in these things. So they keep me going as much as I still access the support that I need from them for my recovery, as well as doing all the good things that come with being an ambassador. And it's opened lots of like crazy doors, and it has been really, really nice. I do some work with the DAC at King's College in London. So I do like monthly research meetings, and what's really nice about them is it's not all to do with cancer. It's to do with like new AI tools, like for heart conditions, different various things that they want patient input on, which I think is amazing. And it's just nice to be in the room with all these with all the boffins, and they make me feel more clever and stuff. I do stuff with Oxford PPI group, which has been amazing because last year I had the opportunity to go down to the university, which was just exhilarating, and work alongside them with their PPI groups, which are focus groups, and discussing things that are going to be for the future, cancer vaccines, things like that. I think having the BRCA gene as well, and also having the TNBC diagnosis, has given me more. I think it gives me more of a drive to find out more behind the scenes, in not just the front facing ambassadoring and things like that. I want to know about the research, because the research impacts on my future life expectancy, number one, as well as the impact on my children and my family, from now knowing that we have the gene prevalent in our world. So that's why I have my fingers in a lot of pies, as they say. Mum has never had cancer, so I don't know how my kids feel about me having cancer deep down. Um, I've not had, do you know what I mean? I've had to tell my children I've had cancer, but it's been a lot for them. And then you kind of feel like you've just handed them bad information, and then just a nice additional death sentence on top of it. And that's how I think you feel at first. But I think because I'm always trying to be positive, like I have said to the children, and I say to myself, there's something about the power of insight. Insight now being in the sense that we know that we've got that. So that means by default now we have to be monitored. The rest of the world don't know what they've got going on until they have something going on with them. I think for the children, I hope that they grow to understand the power of insight, in the sense that it's not a hindrance, it's actually a bonus for them. You'll be at the front when it comes to finding out things. If new research applies to you, treatments apply to you. There could be treatments that apply to you that you don't end up even having to deal with the gene in the future. We don't know, but it's also keeping them aware. And I think then by doing things like this and things that I'm doing, it lets them know whether I'm here or not, mum was active, and it helps them to be active for themselves. I think also having the power of insight, you also have more autonomy over your life. It can worry you and you worry about your chances, but I do think in terms of all the things that they say to try and minimize the cancer risk, not over drinking, looking after yourself, being healthy, all the things that they tell you to do. I think if you have the insight of knowing that you've got this in your family or in your bloodline, hopefully then it helps you to live a little better, still have fun, but within the right limits, because then that bad activity, a bad lifestyle can increase your chances tenfold of this darkening your door. Because of how my hysterectomy come about, and then obviously my age, I was 32, so I still class myself as a bit of a spring chicken and bit of a kid still. That really heavily traumatized me. And when I got diagnosed, I think the first thing I'd said to myself when I first started to digest the information, at least I've got something that I can fight. Regardless of if I win or lose, I can still put up a fight. When I was told I was having a hysterectomy, that was the final end result. I'm not going to get a new womb. I'm not going to be a mum again. I think sometimes that even still gripes me more than having cancer, because at least with cancer, I, I've fought it and I've kept it at bay. Because it's TNBC, it's kind of hard to always say you've won or you've beat it, because you know the research. So I think for now, I think even being in this position is a better physical position than I was after I had my hysterectomy. After I had my hysterectomy, I had sepsis. I was really, really poorly afterwards. And then navigating the trauma then of going into menopause as well. And then having to go into menopause again while going through cancer, because I was already in menopause from my hysterectomy. And then treatment triggered it off again. So that's why I've always said I just take cancer in my stride. I think because it's there, the research is there, the facts are there, and there's other people actively doing something about it. I think that's probably what keeps me putting a positive spin on it. Like, I see more positives from the experiences than negatives. I'd been waiting for about 9 months for HRT. I finally had got given HRT, I think, around the March, April of 2023. And I think also starting the HRT is what prompted my under 40s review, because usually it's when you turn 40. But at 38, because I'd started the HRT, that's what prompted the review. So when I first started HRT, I think within 3 weeks, I felt amazing. And I know a lot of women, it takes them longer, but I felt absolutely amazing. And when the day that I'd got diagnosed, she says, "Oh, you have to stop your HRT." So I thought, like with most medications, there'll be a weaning process. So I was saying to her, "Oh, so how do I do it now then before I start treatment?" And she went, "No, you got to go home and throw it in the bin." And from then I had a complete breakdown. And I think that's also then, I think, been the downward spiral of, I think for me with cancer, the physical side of cancer I've dealt with really well, but the mental side and the emotional side of cancer I've dealt with and am still dealing with very badly.